Today we step into the past at the Torbay Steam Fair, where the power and charm of vintage steam engines comes to life. We marvel at historic machinery in action, enjoy classic fairground rides and soak up the nostalgia of a bygone era. We are surprised to find exotic birds, interesting memorabilia, vintage motorbikes and cars. There's something for everyone, a fun-filled day for all ages. Join us as we celebrate the golden age of steam. On the main road into Brixham, every summer we've spotted signs that say Steam Fair, come in, and we've never been. So this year, Steve decided that he was going to change it and see what was at the Steam Fair and have a look around. Parking attendants directed us across the field until we arrived at the car park, which was in front of the entrance. To get into the Steam Fair, you could either pay in cash or on a credit card. The car parking was free. Good day, and we're at the Torbay Steam Fair and having a look round. First time that we've been here, and let's just see what it holds. As soon as we entered the Steam Fair, it became very obvious that there was a lot more here than just steam engines. Now, I've never ridden a motorbike. I've only ever been on one once, and that was when I was 17 and a mate offered me a lift back from the pub, whereupon he crashed into a roundabout that was, he claimed, not there when he had passed it previously, but it was very misty anyway. The net result was that I had to walk home from the roundabout. The bike needed some tender love and care, and I never went on a motorbike again. That said, I do enjoy looking at motorbikes, and there were a number of bikes here that I recognised that friends had back in their youth. And nice to see these old buses. They take me back to my youth when we used to catch the bus to go into it was Harrow Town Centre in order to go to the cinema. And the other thing they have here that was totally unexpected is vintage cars, and as you probably all know, I do love a vintage car. This one's a Ford Model T, and it's a bit older than me, I'm afraid. And another thing that was unexpected was the Torbay Owls and Company, and this was formed probably around 14 years ago. And its aim is to promote and encourage discussion on these absolutely gorgeous birds. They do a number of static displays at various events, i.e. they don't fly them, and they are looking to provide a memorable and enjoyable experience to the people that come along to view them. It's an ideal opportunity to see these birds up close, and boy are they lovely. I had a really good chat with one of the handlers, and I learnt that not all owls are nocturnal. You can tell if they are because if they come out at night, then they will have brown eyes. However, if they have orange eyes, like this one, then they will come out early morning, and if they have yellow eyes, then they come out during the day. And in order to keep themselves cool, they actually pant a bit like a dog, as you can see from this one. It's only when you get up close that you really start to appreciate how built to hunt these magnificent birds are. You look at their beaks, they're absolutely razor sharp, and their talons as well, very large. So these owls are owned and looked after by members of the club, and some of them are the handlers that you see here. It's nice to see that they actually followed all of the good practices for showing static displays that I found when I was researching this online. So normally barn owls are white, but this one is melanistic, and that's a rare genetic mutation similar to albino, and that causes them to be this dark colour. These owls only really exist in captivity, as their parents will reject them and then they're targeted in the wild. As a result, there aren't a lot of them around. It's not hard to see where this tropical owl got its name from, with its very distinctive markings around the eyes. It also has a much lighter beak than we've seen on the other owls. This one was very affectionate, wanting a little bit of a cuddle and a tickle with its handler at the time. This one is a Scoops owl, which is also known as a transformer owl. When faced with a small threat, they will present themselves as large as possible by throwing out their wings, puffing up and opening their eyes. However, when faced with a larger threat, in this case a dog, they pull themselves in, make themselves as narrow as possible, squint their eyes and raise their tufts to disguise themselves, so that the threat sees them as a tree branch and ignores. I found the engagement with the owls and the handlers to be absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Anyway, now to get on and look at some steam engines. And around the periphery of the fair were the steam engines, and most of them were being got ready for the forthcoming steam engine parade. Fascinating to see the mechanics of these and how they work and operate. And there were all sorts of sizes, from ones that were probably just about big enough to take a couple of people to some quite big monsters as well, bigger brothers. Nice to see. Yes, this was all from a bygone age, but I find it actually fascinating to see how motor transport has evolved over the ages. You know, we've evolved from the steam engine into the petrol engine, the diesel engine, and then we're now into hybrid and battery powered cars. Actually fascinating. I wonder where it's going to end up next. And as you walked from the periphery more towards the centre of the Steam Fair, you started to find some of the vintage cars. I wouldn't say they were absolute prime concourse quality, but it's nice to see some of the original vehicles. So there was a nice collection of vintage vehicles, mainly British, with a lot from my era, which I would say was probably the 60s, 70s and 80s. There were also a number that seemed somewhat older. Whilst most of them were in the centre of the fair, there were also some on the periphery, which I've included in this section to keep all the vintage vehicles together. There was a fair assortment from roadsters, vans. There were a number of Rovers, which is a brand that historically has held a lot of memories for me, and also some more modern off-road vehicles. Most had numbers attached to the windscreen, so I assumed there was going to be a competition. But if there was, then it wasn't announced while I was at the fair, and I was there on the last day. So this is a 1949 Triumph Roadster. This is a 1939 Sunbeam Talbot 10, which was made between 1938 and 39. Del Boy's Reliant Robin may be famous, but this is by far the best Reliant ever made. And here we have a brace of Austins, the Austin Norris van in the darker blue, and the Austin Traveller. Nice old Rover 2000 twin carb. This one's an L-Reg. I used to have a P-Reg back in the day. Lovely car to drive, really held the road well. So this is a car I've not heard of before. It's a Jarrett Javelin. Apparently it was an executive car produced between 1947 and 1953 in Idle near Bradford, England. 356, a truly legendary sports car that holds a special place in automotive history. It was Porsche's first production model. Introduced in 1948, it was designed by the son of the company's founder, Ferdinand Porsche. The car featured a lightweight rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout, which was to become the hallmark of Porsche's engineering. The Jaguar 3.5 litre was introduced in 1938 as an evolution of the 2.5 litre. At that time, Jaguar Cars was known as SS Cars Limited. It would change its name at the end of World War II for some obvious reasons. No, these off-road vehicles aren't vintage, but they're fun, nice to look at, and you can see they're designed for a purpose. And we're now in a section of the fair that deals with collectibles, and this table had loads of corgi models, mainly buses, and next to it was a marquee which had loads more. So we're walking down the path that goes from one side of the fair to the other, and these are full of various side stalls. You've already seen the collectibles, but the stores that sell automotive memorabilia, bric-a-brac, pet stuff, household items, leatherwares and decorations. I'd say it's a real mix of stuff here. At the other side of the fair were three very interesting vehicles. The first was a rat rod truck, and it has a well worn down unfinished look. The second was a Bentley Roadster in a traditional British racing green exterior, which looked absolutely lovely, and the third was a custom tricycle with the head of a cow on the handlebars. I enjoyed looking at them, but I wasn't quite sure why they were here. They didn't seem to be part of any of the competition, and nobody seemed to be around to talk to about them. So this area of the Steam Fair seemed to concentrate very much on the use of steam on farms. Steam power revolutionised agriculture in the 19th and early 20th centuries. It dramatically altered farming practices and increased productivity. Before steam power, you had farming that was very labour intensive, relying heavily on human and animal power. The introduction of steam powered machinery, such as the traction engine and also portable steam engines, brought about significant changes. They allowed farmers to perform tasks much more efficiently and on a larger scale. These machines could be used for a variety of purposes, from ploughing fields, breaking rocks, threshing grain to pumping water, or powering sawmills. They marked a shift towards mechanised agriculture. With steam power, the process became faster, enabling farmers to handle large harvests with less effort. Engines were self-propelled, steam engines that could move under their own power. A mighty step forward from the portable steam engines that had to be towed into place. Despite their many advantages, steam engines were not without challenges. They were large, heavy, and required significant amounts of fuel, usually coal or wood, to operate. Maintaining and operating a steam engine also required specialist knowledge, as the engines needed regular maintenance to prevent breakdowns and ensure safe operation. They were also very expensive to buy. That meant they were only accessible to the larger farms or where groups of farmers pooled their resources and bought one as a joint group. The adoption of steam power was therefore very gradual in agriculture, and many smaller farms relied on traditional methods well into the 20th century. The era of steam-powered farming declined with the advent of the internal combustion engine, which occurred in the early 20th century. That was because tractors powered by gasoline and diesel were smaller, lighter and easier to operate. However, they must be remembered for their shift from manual labour to machine-powered, which marked a pivotal moment in agriculture history as an enabler for large-scale food production. The Tractor Parade, a traditional rural festive event to celebrate the history, culture and significance of tractors and farming in the rural communities. As you can see, they feature a variety of tractors, from vintage models and sometimes more modern machinery. It's a showcase for the evolution of agriculture technology. Tractors in this parade reflect a wide range of makes and models. They represent different eras of farming history. Vintage tractors, especially those from iconic brands like John Deere and Massey Ferguson, are particularly popular. These have been restored lovingly by their owners, who take great pride in preserving and showcasing these pieces of agricultural heritage. Behind me we've got a lovely selection of tractors going around the field, all sizes, all shapes, caterpillars and those with traditional wheels. There was no shortage of people looking in the side stalls to see if they could pick up a bargain or two. Another thing I hadn't expected to see today This is Birdline UK, a prominent parrot rescue and rehoming charity dedicated to the care, rehabilitation and rehoming of parrots and other birds. It was established in the 1980s and they're a volunteer-run organisation. They offer sanctuary for parrots that have been abandoned, surrendered by their owners or rescued from unsuitable conditions. The charity provides these birds with the necessary care, including medical treatment, proper nutrition and social interaction to ensure their well-being. I hadn't appreciated it, but parrots live for such a long time that it creates a special set of problems, as they could easily outlast their foster family. For that reason, they remain in the ownership of Birdline for life. This gives the much needed reassurance that if a foster family's circumstances change, Birdline will step in to give support and if necessary rehome the bird once again. The other thing I hadn't realised was that parrots are prone to self-mutilation. That is when a compulsive bird chews its skin. It's a scary problem because the bird can bleed out, suffer severe infections and worse, die. A lot of the parrots on display today have self-mutilated and in some cases the charity has had to develop specialised equipment to deal with the problem, such as special stab-proof vests. And now it's the turn of the steam traction engine parade, the forerunner to the internal combustion engine tractors that we saw previously. And they come in all sizes and all shapes. Some have been lovingly restored, others have been created by their owner out of either kits or parts that they've made themselves. So this is the Steam Pad Vehicles Parade, which must be the highlight of the event, and we've got a real assortment of different steam vehicles that are coming in. The design of the steam traction engine typically features a boiler mounted on a heavy frame. It has large wheels and a steam pad piston engine that drives those wheels. The boiler generates steam by burning either coal, wood or sometimes other fuels, and that then powers the pistons connected to them. This allows the engine to move forwards or backwards. The large rear wheels provide traction, hence the name traction engine. This enables those machines to pull heavy loads, such as agricultural implements like ploughs and harvesters, as we've discussed before. These traction engines represent the ingenuity and craftsmanship of a very bygone era. Many of the original engines that survive today would be over a century old and are still operational. That can only be a testament to the durability and the quality of their design. Others, usually the smaller models, have taken their owners years to model and create, and they continue to captivate audiences, providing a direct link to the past and early days of mechanised industry. And then we were let onto the field to allow us to have a look at these magnificent machines up close and to talk to the people that either restored or created them and find out a little bit about their history and the background. Really enjoyable, lovely to see them up close. There was a real sort of smell in the air from the burning of the coal and the wood. It really evoked the feeling of a past era, totally adding to the experience. Here we are at the Torbay Steam Fair, and there's some absolutely lovely steamer vehicles behind that have just been on the parade, and they're now in the centre section of the fair being shown off to all and sundry. Now I wonder if any budding entrepreneur has, in Jeremy Clarkson style, decided to bottle this aroma and sell it to the enthusiasts. During the course of the parade, commentators kept us up to date with each of the traction engines we were seeing and some of the features of either the engine itself or about the family that had either restored or modelled and created it. There was a lot of choice in the food department. You could get an assortment of takeaway items, the usual things like hot dogs, burgers, but also freshly made pizzas and curries. Or you could boost your taste buds with popcorn and ice cream. There were a number of areas where you could sit down and have a slightly more formal bite to eat in one of the marquees that were there, and there were also quite a few places where you could get a drink, including a tent for the local cider. I opted for a hot dog, trying to behave myself. Obviously not the best, but it was probably the best that I could do at this point in time. Would have liked a pizza, they look really nice, you know. This stall was at the end of the fair, all on its own, selling handmade wooden pieces. There was a demonstration of wood turning at the entrance, and I had a great time watching. There's something immensely satisfying about wood turning. Taking raw wood with all its imperfections and using a combination of precision and creativity to transform into smooth, symmetrical and often intricate design pieces. Now it's time to check out the fairground with its bright, inviting facades. So later in the afternoon there were a couple of other parades, the first of which was a parade of military vehicles. These were much smaller parades, may I hasten to add, than the steam engine or the tractor one that we'd seen previously. That said, it was still enjoyable watching people having fun, really. The next parade was also small, and this one featured service vehicles from the police force, the fire and the ambulance service. Albeit I think most of these were private ownership. There were also a couple of buses as well. The parade that I stayed for was a little bit bigger, but is equally well quite small, and that was for what I call utility vehicles. So we had everything from earth movers, lorries, transporters, all of those sorts of vehicles. So I started my stroll back to the car park, and there were quite a few steam engines on display. It was interesting to look at the technology, but they came in all sorts of sizes and shapes. It was, it's a nice end to a nice day. So I thoroughly enjoyed myself at the Steam Fair. There was a lot of things that I hadn't expected. There's a lot of things to do, see and take in. And also you could get something to eat, drink, and also have a go on the fairground if you wanted to. All in all, it was a brilliant day, well worth it and highly recommended.